Welcome to the Health by Haven podcast. I'm your host, Haven Quinlan. If you're a multi-passionate wellness enthusiast, then you're in the right place. I'm obsessed with learning as much as I can about the wellness world, and I want to share that with you. Each episode will dive into various aspects of health and wellness through inspiring and informative guest interviews with some solo episodes thrown in. Tune in for all things health, and let's have some fun, shall we? Okay, the episode you've all been waiting for is finally here.
Finally!
We have my dad on the podcast today, Steve Spanyer, to chat all things running and probably not as well. We'll get derailed as per usual. But if you listen to Arcades Cove race recap, you know this is a long time coming. So Dad, thanks for joining us on the pod today.
This is such a surprise.
Oh my gosh. I know. You were shocked to get the invite.
Totally.
Totally. Okay. Well, people might have listened to that race recap already and gotten a little bit of your background, but maybe for those who haven't, well, first of all, you should go back and listen to that episode. But if they hadn't listened and they don't know you in person, do you want to just give yourself a little bit of an introduction before we jump into questions?
Get a plug in, huh?
Yeah.
So I grew up in a large family that was very active just by nature of my mom sending us out to play. And we grew up in a generation where we left at 8 or 9 in the morning in the summer, and the only expectation was we were supposed to be home for dinner, and a lot of roughhousing with brothers and that sort of thing. So very involved in like little league sports and stuff growing up. I kind of fell out of athletics during high school, played some rugby in college, and joined the Peace Corps after college, and then got work as a national park ranger shortly after returning from Peace Corps. And I worked 32 years with the National Park Service in a bunch of different national parks, and retired about 2 years ago.
What was your favorite national park to work in?
You know, honestly, all the ones I worked in had their pluses and minuses. Certainly loved working at Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado. Did that seasonally for a summer right after we got married, and then we went back there in the early 2000s. So that was kind of a sentimental favorite. And then the Great Smoky Mountains in Tennessee is where I spent the majority of my career, and probably overall my favorite, although there certainly were some trying times there as well. So.
As with any job, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do have to give a shout out to my first job at the Everglades as a boat patrol ranger. And it was a cool job because it was different from anything else I did in my career. And also it was probably the best work group that I worked with. So,
and if people haven't listened to Kevin's episode, they'll have to go back and give that one a listen too after this, because he worked with you there.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Okay. Well, of course you played lots of sports growing up, but I clearly didn't know you when you were a kid. I wasn't born yet, but I do remember like being a little kid and just running was always part of your routine. Like Dad's going out on a run. And I know sometimes as kids, we like wanted to go with you and we would play at the park and things like that. And then I remember, I think middle school, maybe I thought for a minute there that I wanted to join cross country. And so I went on a couple of runs with you in the park, but I guess I don't really know when like running started for you and why it became part of your routine.
Yeah. You know, honestly, I've had a love-hate relationship with running my whole life. You know, playing football growing up as a kid, it was always part of our like warm up / fitness routine, getting ready for the season. But on the flip side, I grew up in the generation, I don't know if this is still the case, but like if you were messing around at practice, not paying attention, or if you did something, I mean, it was a time when coaches put you in your place, right? So if you did something misbehaving or or if you made a bad play, even sometimes running was the punishment, and so
Hmm.
I actually grew up kind of dreading it and hating it because of that. And then, in high school or freshman PE class, like the year long goal was like at the beginning of the school year, the PE teacher made us run a mile, which seemed like 1,000 miles to a 14-year-old kid that had never done it before. And then at the end of the year, we ran it again, and he timed us everything. And of course, uh, I was terrible at the beginning of the year. And then uh, about 10 days before the end of the year, I ended up having surgery on my hip, and I missed out on seeing how much I had improved, which I had, but never really got an official time there. So, and then I didn't do any running again until probably I was in Peace Corps a few times. I went out to run just out of boredom more than anything. And all of the Guatemalans thought I was crazy because they just saw some gringo running around a soccer field over and over again, and they didn't know what I was doing. Um, and then when I started working for the Park Service, we had mandatory fitness tests and standards, and so it kind of became my go-to part of at least the cardio part of my fitness routine, and to different degrees. I've been very successful at times and very unsuccessful at times, depending on my everything that was going on in my life. So never been. I've never had to worry about whether or not I was going to finish on a leaderboard anywhere, but you know, I've been doing it for a long time. So
Yeah, definitely. I like remember whenever you would go out for runs when I was like in middle school and high school, and I think you'd be doing a pretty frequent like 5K route. And I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, that's so far. Like, how does he run that far? And then I remember I guess it was really only a few times in middle school I ran with you, and I thought for a second I wanted to join cross country, and then I was like, it's hot here. I don't like this. And so
yeah,
I stopped. But I think in my maybe my last year of high school, I mean, we did a lot of like before school runs
hmm
because I would dance after school, but we had our kind of little like 3 mile loop. And I still remember I couldn't run that straight. And you
yeah,
would be like egging me on to keep go to that mailbox, go to that stop sign,
yeah,
whatever. And I remember the first time we ever like ran the full loop and I was like, whoa,
yeah.
like this was awesome.
Well, it's funny because I mean we've told you this before, but you were like destined to be a runner. You just didn't know it when we first moved to Tennessee. You were only 2 years old, and we would go to the local green belt, and I would do my you know 3 or 4 mile run in the morning, and Mom would push you in the stroller, and then about you know halfway through your stroller ride, you decided you wanted to run too, and you would your little legs would carry you, and you actually ran a fair distance for a little bitty kid like that, and you would want to run the last half mile or whatever with me, and you did, and so that was always it was cute then, but then yeah, you and Jake both joined me some for runs as you started getting into middle school, junior high, and then running really changed for me when you decided you wanted to do that half marathon, because up until that point, it was just kind of a means to an end, to kind of try to stay fit for work. And it really wasn't an enjoyable thing. And it really was fairly stagnant. I didn't change up my distance or my route or my pace much at all. And then when you decided to do that half marathon, I was like, maybe I should do that too. And so that's when running kind of changed for me.
I didn't really realize that's why you ran your first half.
Yeah, it's I mean, that was kind of the motivator for sure. And I mean, I had kind of, I missed having those, as you guys get older, obviously the dynamic changes between parents and kids. And so it was just a way to spend time with you guys too. So, and then of course the timing, those first few years, the timing wasn't great.
Man.
You would go off to college and I would be training by myself. And then we were always, it seemed like, just in different places with our fitness level and training. And so, um, gosh, it wasn't until about what, 4 years ago we actually ever ran a race together.
Yeah, I should have gone back and looked at which year that was. It must have
It
been
was that half. It was the Knoxville
2021.
after COVID when they did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they canceled that race in, I guess, probably 2020.
Yeah.
It's usually like in April, and
Yeah.
then in 2021 they postponed it, and so the race was in October. So I think October of 2021 was the first time you and I ever actually ran the same race at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, that was it. And that was so much fun. Oh my gosh. And remember, it poured down rain and we were like
Uh,
sloshing through Sequoia Hills.
yeah. Well, it's funny you say that because my mind immediately, I was thinking, uh, at the time that seemed like rain until
That's
we
true.
ran the Flying Pig a couple years ago, and that was rain.
You have to tell that story.
Oh my gosh! So that was, I think, 2023 in May. We were in.
Uh-huh.
I think that was it. I went
Yeah.
to college in Cincinnati, so I'd always kind of wanted to run that. And the Flying Pig medals are kind of notorious for being like some of the coolest medals, and I'm literally, it's the thing I covet the most about finishing a race is medals. I'm kind of like a crow with shiny objects. And uh, so we signed up to do that, and it was kind of a fiasco to begin with because you had to work and in South Carolina,
Yeah.
and you flew in the night before the race. We had to go pick you up at the Cincinnati airport, which really is in northern Kentucky, and it was just kind of this thing, right?
Yeah.
And so, and the weather looked like it was going to be terrible, and
I
we kind
remember
of waited.
thinking I remember thinking the race was going to get canceled
Oh
after
yeah,
all of that and I was rushing from flight to
right,
flight trying to make a tight connection to get there.
yeah, and I mean, it was forecast like really violent thunderstorms, right? And so, we stayed the night in downtown Cincinnati, and I never sleep well before a race. And like every hour, I'm like looking out the window of the hotel room to see if it's raining yet. And it didn't rain and it didn't rain. And we got up and we walked out, and it was like a mile to the starting line. And like the whole time, it was like, those distant flashes of lightning. And you're like, oh man, this is not, we're going to get there. And like, they're going to want to postpone the race. And I was just thinking, man, this is not going to be good. And we got there, and it's by far the biggest race I had been in at that point. And, there are just thousands of people like packed into these corrals behind forget if it was, I think it was the football stadium there in downtown Cincinnati. And, the flashes were getting closer and the clouds were getting thicker. Literally, it started drizzling like 2 minutes before the race started, and nobody really knew what was going to happen. And then all of a sudden we were running, and maybe a mile and a half into the race, you cross the river into northern Kentucky. And we crossed that bridge, and we had just gotten across the bridge, and it started raining. And I mean, it was one of those scary times to be outside. The lightning was just so thick and so close. And like, I remember a policeman like standing on the corner, like waving his arms as we got close. I thought, well, surely he's going to tell us we got to get off the course.
Yeah.
And he was just telling us which way to go. He
I
was
remember
standing there
that
in
too.
it
I was
with us.
thinking the same thing.
And I mean, we kept running, and I literally, it was one of those true runner moments where you're like, the smart thing to do is to take shelter, but you're like so focused on, I trained for this and I paid for this and we're here and it's happening, so we're just going to tough it out and do it. And we literally, I mean, it kept raining harder and harder and
Yeah.
harder. And by the time approached the next bridge to cross back into Cincinnati, there was a river of water, literally like knee deep,
Yeah.
coming down the street at us. You couldn't run in it. Like you literally had to just like wade through it because it was so deep. And um, I don't know how nobody got hit by lightning that day, but
Yeah.
it was an adventure for sure.
Yeah, no kidding. I will never forget that like coming around that curve to cross the bridge and being like, "Oh my gosh." And I think we had a moment of separation there because we each
Yeah,
tried to go on like either side of that like a literal river.
yeah,
And it was just I I remember thinking like, well, I might get electrocuted today because I'm wading in so much water.
hmm,
Like this
yeah.
might be how I go out, but at least I'm going out doing something I
Doing something
love.
I love. Yeah,
I
it was.
guess.
I mean, it was one of those things where it's like we can never tell your mother what we just did because this was such a bad decision. But and then we like, you know, I know uh, planning and running races, especially when that size, has to be just one of the hardest things. But there was really poor communications. Like we literally finished that race and then started hearing people talk about how it had been, like they had stopped the race in the middle and pulled people off the course to
Yeah.
shelter in place. And I was like, well, we never heard that. And like I got back to the hotel room and I was looking at my email like 2 hours later and saw that they had sent me an email during the middle of the race telling us to get off the course and shelter in place. And I thought, well, that's about the stupidest thing I ever heard, you know? Like I'm not checking my email during the race.
What do you mean, Dad? All the Olympians are doing it.
Yeah. So
Oh
anyway,
my gosh. Yeah, that was maybe the wildest race I've ever been a part of,
yeah,
actually.
it was crazy.
It's a
So
memory, that's for sure.
yeah.
See, people running will give you these great memories
Yeah.
as long as it doesn't electrocute you first.
Yeah. I remember seeing a couple people uh like step off the course and I heard these ladies saying this isn't worth it. And I thought, but you're here, you know.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
two people I saw make a good decision that day were the only two people I questioned, really. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, at that point, you're already drenched.
yeah,
So,
right. Yeah.
yeah. And it was like cold rain too, though. Remember at the
Yeah.
very end of the race, like my fingers were not like no motor function left in them.
Yeah, it was pretty miserable by the end of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I'm gonna have to post some pictures from that race today this episode comes
yeah.
out so people can get the full I mean you still really can't get the full picture, but yeah, it was a rough one.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
It's but you know how it is. I mean, you always have these moments when you're a runner when you think you're tougher than everybody else. Either you're running in the rain or it's 5 degrees outside and you're running and like people are just passing you thinking that person's crazy, right? And it just makes you feel like, oh, I'm on top of the world. I'm out here
Yeah.
training. Everybody else is still asleep this morning. But
Yeah.
runners are stupid.
It's a badge of honor. We need
Yeah.
one for like each type of weather, I feel like. Collect
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Okay, what's your favorite race been?
Uh, honestly, my first half marathon, I mentioned this after the Cades Cove race. My first half marathon was probably my favorite because I was best trained for it and performed better than any other race I've been in. So that was the Strawberry Plains half, and it was cool because it was the first time I'd done that distance and the first time uh, I'd I had really like trained for something and accomplished a goal um, beyond doing fairly well in it for me anyway. Um, but it was also nice because I don't love crowds or big, all of the issues that come along with a big race. So it was nice for me because I could drive there in a reasonable amount of time and there was no stress finding someplace to park. And I think it was a total of like 750 runners. So it wasn't like overwhelming the number of people there. So Yeah, that was a fun one.
Yeah, it's really pretty out there, but it's honestly so hilly. All
Yeah.
these years, because when did you run that? Like 2015,
Yeah,
maybe?
2015.
Yeah. And all these years, you kept being like, it's such a great course. I love that course. So pretty. You're just running out in the countryside. It's so best course, all this stuff. Finally, like, was it 2 years ago, maybe? Yeah, so it's in
Last year.
February. Yeah, it's in February. So I guess 2023 is when I ran it because like I
Hmm.
didn't run it this past year. I was
Right.
traveling, but finally I was like, okay, I'm gonna sign up for this. Like Dad keeps talking about how great this race is, and then I remember being like, oh my gosh, I did not know it was gonna be this hilly. Like honestly, it's a challenging course, so it's
Yeah.
also super impressive. Like how well you ran that on all those hills too.
Yeah. Well, I was like, so once I started training for that and started, getting stronger and feeling like I was a real runner, like I dove like super deep into running, and I was like reading you know, all the magazines and all the stories you could find on running and strategies for running and training plans. And I remember the one thing that really stuck with me there was um, some article I read, I think in Runner's World magazine, where they were talking about like using hills to your advantage, right? And like running for effort, not for pace, up a hill, but then taking advantage of the downhill and pushing your pace to make up time instead of just like cruising and resting going downhill. Really take advantage of the opportunity to pick up your pace there. And I did that. Like I was like I would honestly, it was probably the only race I've ever really had a strategy for, and
Hmm.
so that's part of why I liked that course too. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I run similarly to that. I don't keep a consistent pace up the hill. I just like to not spike my heart rate. But then in that race specifically, because I did kind of have a time goal and I was just getting competitive with the people around me too.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you catch me on the uphill, I'll show you on the downhill. And I was
Yeah.
blazing past them, which, then they caught up to me again. So it's not like I was dropping a million people, but yeah, it's fun that way. I like it.
Yeah. That race also, like I had no idea, honestly, if I was even going to be able to run the whole race, much
Hmm.
less um, how I was going to do. So, and since it was a small crowd, I literally started at the very back of the pack with the walkers and the strollers and everything. And I think the entire race, it's the only race I think I've ever run that I ran the entire thing. I didn't walk at all, and the entire race, I only got passed by one person, I think, the
Oh,
entire race.
nice.
Because I started at the back, right? So
Yeah.
people I pass. People I never catch,
Yeah.
never catch. And so that was like, it made me feel better than, whatever, finishing 150 out of, you know 200 people in my age group or whatever it was, right? it
Yeah.
it just made me feel good because I felt like, well, I'm fast because I'm passing all these people.
Yeah.
I mean, most of them were walkers, but that
Still,
doesn't.
they count.
Yeah.
You would be a good charity chaser, Dad, in a race. Have you heard of that?
No, don't know what
It's
that means.
like I don't know if every race has it, but like I've heard in some of the bigger ones, like I think I heard about this for Cherry Blossom in Washington D.C. I think that's a 10 miler, not a 10K. I think it's 10 miler. They like have a designated person to start in the very back, like the very last
Mhm.
person across the start line,
Mhm.
and some charity is like matching them. So for every person they pass, the charity's donating, or like
Right.
somebody's donating to a charity like a specific dollar amount for every person. So like their goal is to pass as many people as possible, even though they started in the back, because they're like raising money for whatever charity as they're running by people.
Oh,
Be
that's
pretty
cool.
fun. Be pretty
Well,
fun.
10 years ago, that would have been a good role for me. I'm not sure I'd pass many people now. I've slowed down since those days.
Just get a bigger pledge for
There you
per
go.
person.
Yeah. You're gonna have to pay me $1 million per person I pass, because
Oh, please. Okay, so that was that 2015 when you ran
2015,
Strawberry
yeah.
Lanes? And
Yeah.
then for some reason I was thinking your marathon was 2016. I mean 15, but it was 16, right?
2016.
So tell us
Yeah.
about that.
So the high of my experience there on that first half marathon, in some ways, it probably set me up for uh, some disappointment. Like I was all in on running at that point. Like it was, I went to work, I did my family stuff, and I ran. That's like all I did. And so, I fell into that trap after that race of like all of a sudden I didn't necessarily have anything else. Like I didn't have a goal at that point, right? I wasn't training for anything once that race was over. And I fell into that trap of like thinking, well, adding more miles automatically translates into more fitness. And so I
Hmm.
really started adding a lot of miles, not a ton at a time. Like I was still being smart about building my mileage, but I got it in my head that like real runners have to do 100-mile week at some point. And
Mm.
so I was trying to do that, and I never really got that close to it. I think my biggest week was like in the 60s somewhere, but um and I was still having some success with that. And so I got in my head that training for a full marathon was the next logical step. And so I started doing that. And I I was still being pretty smart about it. Like I had a goal, I had a training plan that I believed in, and I was still kind of searching for a specific race, but I had it in my mind that I was going to do one of the relatively close by beach marathons. Like
Hmm.
I forget now where they all are even.
Like Kiowa or Myrtle Beach or something, right?
Like more like Myrtle Beach, or there's a I forget. There's another one. The whoever does the Shamrock
Oh,
Marathon.
is that Savannah?
Maybe I can't remember exactly. Anyway, there are two or three like beach side marathons that are all kind of in that. They'd be too hot to do in the late spring or summer, but so they tend to do them like in January or maybe early February. And I thought, flat course, good opportunity. We could go like on a family vacation and I could do this race there. And so my whole training plan was based on that idea. And then for whatever reason, that didn't work out. And all of a sudden, like the next set of marathons I was looking at were more like the April, May marathons. And ultimately, I just decided it was easier just to stay close to home and do the Knoxville marathon. The problem is my training plan, which I thought was going to be a 20-week plan to till January, became whatever, a 32-week plan to April. And, I ended up overtraining. I ended up with a stress fracture in my foot. And in the end, my goal was I wanted to run a marathon before I turned 50, and I was 49 with my 50th birthday like right around the corner. And so, and I was as trained, like it was brutal obviously training that many miles, and I thought if I don't get it done now I might not. And so I ended up running, not at my peak and got through it, and I'm proud of it, but it kind of taught me that maybe maybe that distance was a little bit of a stretch for me. So
Yeah, well, and even if that distance wasn't a stretch, like the almost like overtraining of how long you were building up those miles and like how many miles a week to
yeah,
then be like training on a stress fractured foot
yeah,
obviously is less than comfortable.
I don't remember if I ever totaled the miles I ran, training miles I ran for that, but it had to have been. My guess is it was over 700 miles that I trained for that
Yeah.
total. I don't remember exactly, but it was a lot more than probably was smart. So,
Yeah. Several
but I'm
pairs
glad
of
I did it.
shoes.
Yeah, I don't even. I probably did burn 3 or 4 pair of shoes in that 9 months or whatever that it ended up being.
So yeah, it was a Knoxville marathon. And me and Jake got to come and
Yeah,
cheer you on. That was so fun.
yeah.
And I
And by the way,
remember,
another very hilly course.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. What?
So,
Wait a second. This is becoming a pattern.
I mean, East Tennessee, I mean, that's kind of the nature of the beast here, right?
That's
So,
true. That's true. Yeah. I remember like me and Jake came with you at the very start of the race as well. And they had everyone in the convention center because it was like freezing that morning. So everyone was waiting in the convention center before the start line. And I
mm,
remember like, when you get nervous, stomach, you just have like a pit in your
mm,
stomach. I
yeah,
had that for you because I
yeah,
was like, I had never run a marathon. I had run one half or two halves or something
yeah,
before that. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I kept remember being like, I'm so glad he's the one running and not me because I
yeah.
was like stressed just being there. But it definitely inspired me for sure because I remember thinking like it was so hard to run a half. I cannot imagine turning around and doing it again twice in a row.
Honestly, one of the lowest points of my, at least my running life was, you know, like many places that do both a full and a half marathon, the half marathon route basically is the first half of the marathon route there at Knoxville. And like maybe a half mile before the finish for the half, those people split off and they go to their finish line in the half. In the full marathon, people just keep going. And watching those people all split off and go off to the left towards their finish line was like the lowest, saddest moment of my running life, I think, thinking they're literally like working towards their personal glory. Like they're getting ready to go down the chute here with their arms raised and get their medal, and I have to do it all over again. I thought, like, I seriously questioned some decisions I had made in my life at that point.
Yeah, that split point, because I've done that race since then, is
Mm-hmm.
like, it's rough because it is at like mile like 12 and a half.
Yeah.
And there's volunteers there pointing half this way, full this way. I actually do think this year when I ran it, when the guy was saying that, I was like really questioning my decision right
Mm-hmm.
now. They give
Yeah.
you an out. They shouldn't really.
It's rough, but after you feel sorry for yourself for a half mile, then you kind of just get back into your pain cave and you keep going. So,
Yeah. Well, it was definitely very inspiring. It took me 4 years later still to
yeah.
run one. But
You know, I've gone and watched you run your fulls, most of them, and you always look very focused and in control. And I don't know if we've ever really talked about this much, but like I remember, like in the Knoxville full, you go through this neighborhood. What's it called? Island
Island
something.
Homes.
Yeah, Island Homes.
Hmm.
Really nice neighborhood, but it's kind of out. Like it's away from downtown. It's away from all the festivities, and I don't know, you're like mile 21, 22, or something
Hmm.
going through there. I just remember running through there and thinking this is the farthest I've ever run, and then also thinking I still have like 4 miles to go, and like I just don't know where that is going to come from. And just at that point, like you get so, at least for me, I got so exhausted and so like emotionally drained and physically drained that like everything just makes you like angry, right? Like
Yes.
music that you've been training to and that you love that's playing in your ears all of a sudden just makes you want to scream, and it's like I just remember I had to pull my earbuds out and just like suffer through it in silence because I was just angry at everything.
Rage running.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that neighborhood, no offense to that neighborhood, it's lovely, but it's my least favorite part of that race. Just
I mean, yeah,
purely because, it's in the 20 miles. Like
yeah,
anything's going to be terrible at that point. It's actually like flat and they have great, like, the neighbors come out and like cheer for
yeah,
you and there's signs. Like it's honestly really nice, but like you're right. You actually have to run. You like go through downtown and then you run away from it again at
yeah,
like mile 19 or 20. And you're like, your brain doesn't compute. It's like, no, the finish line's that way. Like, why
yeah,
are you taking me further away?
yeah,
So I think that's also why it's like, and I remember I ran it in 2023 and that was the first time I'd ran that course. And I kept thinking like, I looked at this route on the map a million times. Like we've clearly missed the turn. Like we're supposed to turn back by now, and just
Yeah.
I kept thinking like that neighborhood was endless. So
Yeah, it was. Well, it's partly too because you're running a block and then taking a turn. And like,
yeah.
honestly, I prefer having turns and stuff because it gives you, for me anyway, it gives you more of a sense of, you're checking off like, okay, I have to go to that corner, and then you make a turn, and okay, 2 blocks down, I'm going to make it. I hate the courses that are like literally you're on the same flat straight road for 3 miles, and you
Yeah.
like, it's kind of like you feel like you're never getting closer to, like, you're trying to find something that gives you that sense of perspective that shows that you're actually making progress.
Yeah.
So
That's funny. We're kind of opposite in that way. I kind of love like a longer stretch, either like a big loop or like an out and back or something. All the like weaving makes me
mhm.
like crazy.
Yeah.
Now that you've shifted from like running for fitness, for sports, and for work, and then you went through this big like running the half and the full, what has running been to you like the past few years?
Well, it's more of a casual, fun adventure at this point. Like I enjoy going out in town here, and like I'm a super early morning runner. Like I like to have my run done before the sun comes up, or at least shortly after. And we're in a very small, safe town, right? And so you never have to worry about, oh, can I go in this neighborhood or whatever. And so I've actually enjoyed just kind of exploring different parts of town and kind of changing up my routes and stuff. And, you know, I always carry my phone with me, and, I'm always thinking about taking photos. Like I run when I want to run, and I stop and walk and take pictures or rest or whatever when I want. And so it's a lot less goal oriented. And I've suffered through some, like, just the natural aging, and I've got really bad arthritis in both my knees. And so it's become a lot less of a, I don't know, I've had to let go of that, like, inner competitive spirit of see how fast I can go or how far I can go, and just like kind of recalibrate my, what it is about running that I like. And that's great. I enjoy doing it. The only part of that I don't like is I don't feel like you guys are still really into running, and you're young and in really good shape. And so I don't feel like I can keep up with like, I enjoyed that social part of running more than I ever have, but I also feel like I'm kind of the anchor on the the group sometimes. So, I mean, and it's okay. You're all really good about saying it doesn't matter. But at the same time, you know, I still have a little bit of that inner competitive, like especially when you're the dad, you feel like you have to be the strongest and the best at stuff, so your
Yeah.
kids don't get like disappointed in you.
Oh
Like, not
gosh.
not disappointed, but like, those are just the type of things that, those are like the social norms, right? Like,
Mm.
dad's supposed to be at the top of the pecking order. And, you know, the don't tell Jake I admitted this finally, but like the day he became taller than me was like a real setback for me personally because of that, right? So yeah, I mean, that's the only like part about running that's a disappointment to me now, is I just feel like every day is a little harder for me, but I still love doing it, and I mean, it's still a big part of like trying to live a healthy lifestyle and be in shape too, right? So
Hmm.
I don't want to make it so casual that I'm not getting something out of it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, one of my favorite things is running with you, or Jake lately has been running, which is so fun to get to run with
Yeah,
him. And, now Billy's been running with me for a few years. So
yeah,
honestly, I just love doing that because I love the social aspect as well. And obviously, there's times where I'm training and I'm gonna leave all you guys in the dust.
yeah,
But no, I love it. It's so much fun. And that's why honestly, like this summer when we lived in New York as well, I was going to like every run club I could find because I didn't
yeah,
really know anyone up there. And yeah, there's a million places you can run by yourself in New York, but still, I was
Yeah,
like, it'd be way more fun to just go and just chit chat with people. It makes the miles just like tick by. You know, we do a
yeah,
6 mile run on the West Side Highway and it would be over before I even knew it. So,
right. Yeah, honestly, I mean, for me, social running is it's very specific to our family though. Like I enjoy doing it with you and Billy and Jake. I'm not necessarily a big well, I'm not at all a group run kind of guy because I'm
mhm.
not a super social person to begin with, I guess. But I love the social part with you guys, but I also love the solitary part of like going out and just being like it's one of those times you can just be in your own head, right? You can just think through what you need to think through. I can't tell you how many times, during my career, especially when I'd go through and work out, when you supervise people, there's a lot of challenges and a lot of difficult conversations you have to make have with people. And like I worked through a lot of conflict and a lot of um, work challenges and issues on runs. And, it's when I listen to audiobooks or listen to podcasts. Like there's this whole world that's opened up in the last 10 years or whatever that for a long time, unless you were willing to drag around a Walkman cassette recorder or something, like there wasn't like you didn't have many options, right? And so I love that part of running too. It's like the time when it's already you time, right? You're already out there doing something for yourself, and it's like a way to kind of multitask and also, I don't sit down and read a book very often anymore, but I can if I'm training, burn through a book in a few days of being out running. So
Yeah,
kind of nice too. So
definitely. It's great stress release. It's great time to like get the entertainment in while you're also exercising. Yeah,
yeah.
there's so many benefits for sure. Since Christmas is coming up, tell everybody about our 100 Christmas trees run.
I don't remember when we first did that 3 or 4 years ago. Um, I think it was one of those kind of organic things that I was just telling you about how I like to count Christmas trees when I'm out running in the morning since I'm doing it before the sun comes up. A lot of people leave their decorations lit all night, and I don't remember if I said it or if you said it. Somehow the idea came like, I wonder if we could ever count 100 Christmas trees on a run. And so going out and trying to like, and then of course you're like, I know where there's, I know where there's a tree. We need six more, and we're like just rerouting to make sure we get there. But and then of course we're making up the rules as we go along as well. It's like, well, if it's an outdoor tree, does it count? Well, an outdoor tree counts, but not a bush, and it has to be evergreen shaped. It can't just be light strung in a dogwood tree. Like like it's all good fun, but it's kind of silly. But yeah. And I remember a few years ago, I think you were still in Columbia, maybe. I was out on a run one morning and I was going through like downtown, and there was like a attorney's office or something that had this big plate glass window, and they had a tree in it. And so I stopped in front of it and I took a selfie in front of this Christmas tree and I sent it to you. And you were like, wait, is that somebody's house? Like you stalked up to their house. And anyway, it's kind of
Yeah,
funny.
I
And then of
still
course
remember that.
it became a joke. Like I would then start taking pictures of people's like inflatables in front of their house. Like,
Yeah, yeah, I do remember that clearly, actually, because I literally thought you walked up to somebody's like front living room window and took a picture.
that wouldn't be at all creepy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's one of my favorite Christmas traditions now because we normally do it on like Christmas Eve or Christmas
Yeah.
morning, or like a day really close to Christmas, depending on, weather and timing and everything. But trying to count those 100 trees, that was our rule. Like, you can't go home until you count 100
I know
trees on your run.
I'm stressing about it this year because we ran the Kate's Cove race, and my knee really blew up on me for like 2 weeks. I had like all this fluid built up on my knee. And so it finally, literally, it was like, I remember sitting at home thinking, man, I think I might be able to run tomorrow. And then the next morning I woke up with a cold, and now I've had this cold for 2 weeks. And so I haven't really trained in a couple weeks. And I'm thinking, man, I've got like 3 weeks here before I got to pull out the 100 Christmas tree run. So,
It's the most important run of the year, Dad.
oh, right.
Get on it.
Maybe out there hacking up a lung, but
Oh, geez, don't do
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, honestly, we should look at our Strava map afterwards because I feel like
Oh,
we
yeah.
probably have a bunch of weird little like offshoots and
Yeah.
loops just because we're like, oh, we know there's a
Maybe,
house down this block with a bunch of trees.
maybe we should just map out a Christmas tree shaped run and we'll call it good
Oh,
this year.
oh my gosh, wait, I saw this video. I saved it, I think. I need to show you. It was like somebody basically had like a little man like waving on
Yeah,
Strava. Like it was like a slideshow of all their
that's funny.
runs back to back to back. And
Yeah,
for people who maybe are listening who aren't runners, like Strava is this app that you can track your mileage on it and it'll do like a GPS map and everything. And, there's all sorts of different creative ways people have gotten competitive on Strava. And
yeah,
Strava has really leaned into it as far as like they're like quote local legends, and it's like if you've run the fastest whatever 100 yards on this street in your town or whatever, you can like compete in all these different ways.
right.
But yeah, people will like draw out designs with the like how they've run through a town. It's really funny. But
It sounds like something right up my alley. I haven't really leaned
yeah.
into that one yet, but maybe that'll be my goal for 2025 is to draw some interesting
Oh yeah.
maps.
Oh yeah. You can put it on your 300 sunrises
Yeah,
account.
if I ever
Different
get that started.
maps. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I have this idea of starting my own Instagram page called 300 Sunrises because I always take these pictures and send them to people on my morning runs, and I thought, man, I should actually make a catalog because there are actually some really nice ones. But
Well, now it's out there, so you have to do it before someone steals your idea.
right, oh gosh, I'm gonna, dang it, I've
You
got
have
so
one
many
week till this
ideas.
goes live.
Can I tell them my roadkill idea too?
Yeah, do that one.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to come up with a better name than this because I don't think I think the clientele that might gravitate towards this name is not necessarily the folks I'm shooting for, but I've had this idea of having an Instagram page called the Roadkill Cafe. And it's based on like since I run early in the morning, especially on like Saturday morning and Sunday morning, I'll be out running. And I started noticing like all of these like styrofoam, like these takeout food containers on the side of the road that like were smashed. There was food in it, but they were smashed on the side of the road. And I think what is happening is, people go out to Texas Roadhouse or something, and they've got their little doggy bag they're taking home, and they must set it on the roof of the car and then forget and drive off. And so it's strange how many of these things I see out on the side of the road of like somebody's leftovers smashed on the side of the road. And I think it'd be so sad to get home and realize you've lost your leftovers, but they don't realize the joy they're bringing me because I always laugh when I laugh at my own idea basically as I run past all this smashed food on the side of the road. So anyway, that's my other idea.
I wonder if it's a regional thing, that much takeout getting
I don't know,
forgotten.
maybe. I mean, it's really kind of weird how like I know the restaurant industry is really tough. Like owning a restaurant is a lot of work and a lot of them fail. But man, in our little town, you don't go past restaurants in our little town that aren't like always packed, it seems like. And people are like, if you open a new restaurant, like there's a line of cars a mile long trying to get into the parking lot the first week. So yeah, it's very popular here. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay, before we go, I want to talk a little bit about your painting and your Etsy shop.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we let the cat out of the bag that one of your keynote sponsors is me, and I'm not paying you, by the way. So the story goes way back. I don't want to bore people, but when I was in college, Bob Ross and his painting show on PBS was kind of our go-to, like post-party recovery on Sunday mornings, and we would watch Bob Ross paint his peaceful scenes. And I always thought I'd like to do that someday. And, you know, life went on. And anyway, your mom was working with an art class here in town. She was talking about how they were going to do Bob Ross paintings. So this was about 6 years ago. And I was like, oh, yeah, I always wanted to do that. And so I finally just bit the bullet, went out and bought myself some art supplies and started painting. And 6 years later, it's probably my favorite free time activity. Well, it's easier than running. It's my favorite non-strenuous activity. So yeah, I started painting, and I mean, I don't know how good I am at it, but at some point I realized that like I had a lot of paintings that I had to do something with. So started this Etsy shop. And I mean, Etsy's a great way for people like me to, have some way of like selling stuff. And I've had some success with it. It's a difficult platform from the standpoint that there's a ton of, I mean, there's just so much content on it that I think it's hard to find stuff on it sometimes. At least I haven't figured out their algorithm because there's so many painters on there. And so I'm still working through trying to figure out how to get paintings in front of more people. And I mean, honestly, I don't know if there's a market for it or not, but I love doing it. And if somebody else can enjoy it, I'd rather it be in their house than sitting in my basement collecting dust. So yeah.
Yeah, well, he's being super modest because the paintings are amazing and you're very talented at it. And obviously, it's come with a lot of hard work and practice too. Like, I know that you have watched a million videos on technique and,
Yeah.
have done a million paintings, but it's very impressive. And I think being easier than running is relative to who you are because I disagree.
Yeah. Well, it's what I've learned is that I think there are certainly brilliant artists out there that just have a natural ability that they've developed. I'm cautious of ever undervaluing someone's hard work, even when they have a natural talent for something.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not one of those people, but I still think that I think art and music and a lot of other things, to a certain degree, are skills that you can develop, over time. So, I would put myself in that category. I think obviously there have been brilliant musicians in history that most people could practice, playing an instrument their entire life and never reach that level of brilliance, right? And I think artists of, painters and all types of artists fall into um, that same category. There's some people that are just brilliant because they have that little extra natural talent, and but I think that if you work hard, you can develop skills even if you don't have that natural talent. So I think that's where I am, and honestly, if I didn't love doing it, it wouldn't really matter to me if I was great at it or not great at it because it's peaceful and it gives me joy, and so I think I would continue to do it. It certainly motivates you to keep going if you start having success and you see improvement and stuff. So yeah,
Hmm.
I I have to, how we talk about mantras, and
Hmm.
for people who don't know me, I'm a huge University of Kentucky fan, basketball fan especially, and the new coach at Kentucky has a mantra that I think goes well with all things in life, but I've kind of been trying to apply it to my running life and my art life, and what he says is the magic you're looking for is in the work that you don't want to do. And to me, that's a brilliant statement. And like, you can be a certain level of anything, whether it be a runner or a painter or a football player, whatever, right? But to go to that next level, you have to do the work that you're avoiding, And so I try to take that to heart and keep pushing, even when it's like hard and you don't really want to do it. So
Well, You're right. That fits for running and for painting and probably a lot of other things in life. So
Yeah, yeah,
I,
for sure.
I feel like that's a perfect note to shift over to our final questions on.
No, but
Anything else though that
speed
you
run?
need
No,
to share?
nah. I mean, I could talk forever, but probably don't want to
Luckily,
hear me.
there's a new episode every week. So chances are you
I'm
want to
already
come
planning
back.
my next episode.
Part two. Look
Oh
out,
man.
people. Okay. This might be a silly question, but what's your favorite workout?
I mean, I like doing strength training too, so I like lifting weights. But I mean, when I'm running well, it's my favorite. I don't always feel like I'm running well, but yeah, that's my favorite.
Okay. What's your favorite food?
Pizza.
Yeah. Okay. Some rapid fire. I'm going to add some running ones first.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, AirPods or earphones, headphones, or no headphones on a run?
Yeah. AirPods,
Okay.
earbuds. Yeah.
When you're listening, podcast or music?
Podcast.
Okay. Audiobook or podcast?
Probably audiobook if there's a good one.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Running watch or no running watch?
No. I tried one, but I felt like it was kind of redundant for me because I track it on Strava on my phone. So
Road running or trail running?
road. I'd like to trail run, but I'm too big of a klutz. I know I would break something fast if I did it.
I agree. Same. For myself, but
Yeah,
probably you too.
definitely. Yeah, we share that gene.
Yeah. Running or walking?
Running. I hate walking so
It's
much.
so inefficient, right?
Yeah. I mean, I like a hike out in the woods, but yeah. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I like to I try to make myself like walking and I like walking waffles, but
Yeah.
really running's so much more efficient.
Yeah.
Morning or evening workout?
Definitely morning now. There was a time when I preferred night, late night, but I like dark workouts. So either before sunrise or after sunset. But I'm getting old and I'm usually in bed by 8:30 or 9. So
Morning it is. Lifting or body weight?
lifting.
Indoor or outdoor workouts?
Outdoor.
Juice or smoothie?
Mm, honestly, I don't really love either one.
Salad or bowl?
Salad.
Pizza or pasta?
Well, pizza, but if they had the option of putting pasta on pizza as a topping, I would do that.
Dad, you can make anything you dream of. Go
That's
for
true.
it. Tacos or quesadilla?
Quesadilla.
Early riser or night owl?
Early riser.
Okay. And tell everyone where they can find your Etsy shop so they can
Ooh,
go and find themselves a good painting to add to their collection.
you may have to tell them because I don't ever go onto it. It's uh, www.etsy.arrange. Is it
Isn't
dot
it
or is it
arrangerpaints.etsy.com?
maybe?
We'll add this in post.
Yeah, there you go. I don't ever go on the site.
It's just there. It's saved on your computer.
I mean, it's a good thing that they email you if you make a sale because sometimes I forget to check it, but I always know if there's an email that I've made a sale. So
That's good.
5-star rating. I ship almost always the same day or the next day.
Yeah. So if you need a Christmas gift for
Christmas.
somebody,
Yeah.
your kid's teacher, your neighbor, your best friend, your
Yeah.
family, perfect gift to have a
And I
nice
will,
personal touch.
yeah. The I will say that I don't do prints, so everything's original. So it's a one of a kind. Nobody else will ever have the exact same painting that you'll have. So
It's pretty amazing.
pretty amazing, really.
Yeah.
Handmade. The number of hours that goes into it. I spend way more time than probably a normal artist would.
Yeah.
Probably
You
because I'm very
definitely,
inefficient. But
no, you take great care and pride in your work, and it shows.
Thanks.
So definitely go check out the shop.
There is a discount code if you're a
There
Health
is
by
a
Haven
discount
listener.
code. Yes, if you use code HXH10,
Yeah,
you get
10% off
10% off.
everything.
So
So the more you buy, the more you save.
it's true. You're losing money if you're not going to the Etsy shop or Ranger Paints. Okay, well, order up, people, because Christmas is coming and you probably don't have everyone checked off your list. So we can
And
help you out.
there's quite a wide variety of subject matter.
Definitely. Great. Okay, well, stay tuned for our 100 Christmas trees run. I'm sure I'll share
Oh,
something about it on Instagram.
yeah,
But
definitely.
all
All
right.
right.
Well, thanks, Dad, for coming on the show today. It was so fun to
Always a pleasure.
chat.
Yeah, yeah. I'll get this cold beat here in the next week or so, and then we'll get back out there on the trail or road, not the trail.
Not the trail. We might not make it to Christmas.
That's right. All right. All right,
See you
hey.
on the roads.
All right. Good talking to you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Health by Haven podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to give the show a 5-star rating and leave a review. It makes such a huge difference in reaching new people and spreading the joy of healthy living. I would also be so appreciative if you subscribe to the show in the listening app of your choice so you never miss an episode. Your support truly means the world to me. Have a happy, healthy day, and I'll talk to you again soon.